My name is Joshua, and I am the Tribune. Today, God has given me a very difficult and most unpopular assignment, which is to teach you about the terrifying side of His character. I have been very clear on this channel that most pastors and leaders of our times are afraid to discuss this side of God's character because they want to make you comfortable. But what happens is, because they're trying to make you comfortable just to make themselves look good, it stifles your relationship with God and puts you in a very dangerous situation. But the truth is that you shouldn't really be relying on your pastors and your Christian leaders to teach you about this side of His character. Really, what you should be doing is you should be reading the Bible for yourself so that He can teach you exactly how He is without anything clouding you and without anybody trying to hide parts of His character from you. Now, if you think that I'm only talking about the terrifying side of God's character that the sinners and the unbelievers are going to experience, you should really think again, because today God has given me a very unusual topic, which is He has told me that He is going to come visit His leaders, but when He comes to visit them, He will not come in the way they think. We are taught in our time that when God comes, everything is always happy and bubbly and everything feels so wonderful. But God has told me, and I have experienced for myself, when He comes to visit His highest leaders, to give the highest assignments in this coming era, it will feel terrifying to you. It will feel horrifying to you, the person He really wants to work with and loves so much. You will be horrified. Now, we see this in the Bible all the time. We see that when God appears to His very special leaders, they are not necessarily excited and they don't necessarily feel wonderful. And the angel of the Lord always has to explain to them that they do not need to be afraid. Now, why isn't this talked about in our churches? Why do we ignore this side of God? We really only believe that God is going to show this side of His character to evil, wicked people? No, we see it all the time in the scriptures. But what happens is when God comes to us like this, we always think it's evil. We always think that it's Satan. We blame Satan for something that he really doesn't even have the power to deliver in our lives. And today God has ordered me to explain that it is Him when you experience this level of terror. Now, I'm going to give you an outline that will help you discern when God is coming to visit you as one of His very special leaders, and it feels terrifying because God does not want you to think that it's the enemy, and He wants you to save a lot of energy and time by not rebuking Satan, but actually getting in line with His purpose for the coming era that He's called you to. Now, the first thing we need to know is that God is just. God loves justice and He loves righteousness. Though loving kindness is a huge part of His character, His loving kindness is manifested in His judgment and His righteousness. Now, when our God appears to us in all of His glory and all of His power and all of His authority, it does not always feel wonderful. What you need to know in the situation when He appears to you as one of His leaders and one of the people He wants to use, and you feel horrified to the point where you don't even know and discern that it is God, you need to know what His agenda is for this season. Because if you do not know what God's purpose is of allowing you to experience this terrifying side of His character, then you will either run away from Him or you will try to fight Him because you'll think it's Satan. You will think his strategy to get you in line is the enemy, but really it's not. The first reason why God allows us to experience this holy terror when He appears to us as leaders is because He knows we do not fully understand His character. In order to do His purpose in our lives and accomplish His missions through us, we need to understand as many sides of His character as possible. Now, when God is in judgment mode and He wants to let you see that He is righteous and He loves justice, when He appears to you in a situation to get you in line, you will feel the shudder of how serious He is with this part of His character, because your purpose is aligned with this side of His character of judgment and righteousness. So He wants you to know how serious He takes this side of His character, because if you don't know how much He is serious about His righteousness and His judgment, then you cannot work with Him, because you will not understand the level of seriousness He is he's taking your assignment. So he will allow you to feel that side of his character. And it does not feel wonderful. It feels very scary because he is extremely serious and he means business. The second reason why you will feel horrified when God appears to you as one of his special leaders in this coming era is because he needs you to be updated with his current emotions on the world stage and on his agenda. There are times when God is very angry and displeased with the older generations, especially in the church. And when God is angry with the older generations and he is ready to wipe out these pastors and wipe out the current Christian leaders and replace them with new power, he needs you to know how he feels about that. He needs you to feel his anger. So when God appears to you to get you in line with his mission and preparing you to step into your purpose fully, he will be very serious about aligning you with his current emotions. In order to complete God's purpose, you have to know how he feels at each stage and each season of your preparation and the implementation of your purpose, because you will channel his feelings into the work you're doing, and it will empower you and make you fearless in the face of people and the enemy and even against your own insecurities. So God needs you to know how serious he is about the times, and his emotions tell you what he's thinking about what's happening in the world, and it gives you a clue of what your assignment is and how you're supposed to approach your assignment in him, because he has righteous anger and people don't like to talk about it, but he will not change. If he is angry about something, he is angry about it. And the next thing he does is he wants to try to find people who will listen to how his anger feels in their spirit and take that as fuel to align themselves with his purpose and manifest his preparations and wonders for him to touch the world through them. The third reason God allows us to feel very horrified when he is calling us in a very serious manner to our purpose is because we need to pay close attention to the prototypes that he is giving us that are actually prophetic prototypes. He is trying to warn us of the times to come. And when God drops down in a situation and you feel horrified, and the first thing you try to do is pray it all away, but it does not go away and you still feel terrified, and he allows you to sit in this horror, you need to know it's him, but then you also need to know that he's about to give you prophetic situations that will give you insight on what his plan is for your purpose and how you relate to what he's doing on the world stage. When he comes to his mighty leaders and begins preparing them, he needs their undivided attention. And many times that does not happen with feel-good emotions. He makes sure that you are shuddered at first to jolt you out of your routine and anything you thought you were going to do, all your agendas, worshiping all these other idols, and anything else that he knows needs to be broken off of you. He will come in so much power that your spirit shakes and trembles at his presence in your life. He needs you to pay attention. And when this happens, you need to study the situations that he is putting before you, because they are very important. It will give you insight for the future, and they will serve as confirmations for you when you really need it. You will feel so horrible and terrified at what is happening in your life that you will not be able to not pay attention to what God's doing and what he's showing you based off of unusual situations that add up together. And one thing that is very important during this time is when he is giving you prophetic prototypes, these situations always are very unusual. They actually look like miracles. One thing that is beautiful about this is God's prophetic prototypes that come in circumstances encourage you that he is with you in the situation, though he's not removing the terror exactly how you thought he would or you think he should. The fourth reason why God will allow you to experience this level of terror that only he can bring is because there is unchecked sin in your life that he wants gone. Now, this is another thing that comes through the process of moving through the season with God. The reason why you feel so horrible is because you have sin that you have not dealt with. So what he's doing is he is giving you a taste of being on the wrong side of God's judgment. And what this does over time, and especially in retrospect, is it keeps you in line for your purpose. It makes sure that you do not backslide because you have already felt the terror of being on the wrong side of God. remember, God is just. He hates sin and he hates idols. And he wants you to worship him only. He wants to be on the throne of your heart and to be your best friend and to be your father. And he loves you so much that he will allow you to be horrified if it means that you will check your sin and correct it. He wants you to repent. This is crucial. Now, what is Satan's agenda during this season when God allows you to feel the terror of his presence for his purpose? Satan wants to take credit for this level of power that he knows he could never achieve, and he does not even have the authority to make you feel the terror that you're feeling. Because the terror that you're feeling is a godly fear. And the reason it's a godly fear is because God has all power in his hands. He has life and death in his hands, and it's safe there because he is just. But Satan wants to pervert and pollute this and say, this is me. I am the one giving you this terror. So really, you should either run because God's not answering your prayer and he's not removing it. He is allowing me to afflict you. Or two, he will say, you need to fight me. He will say, you need to fight against the demonic principalities that are against you. But really, there are no principalities against you. This is God's authority and God's power that you're experiencing. And your human nature is shuddering because he is so holy and wonderful and he is trying to get you in line. The last thing Satan will do during this season is he will want you to fight God. He will tell you that God does not know what he's doing and that you know better than God. And he will have you scrambling to fix things that God does not want fixed and won't allow fixed. And this is how it looks when we are fighting against God because we are not moving in his agenda. This is why it's so important also, as a side note, to not enjoy Satan's entertainment. There are two things Satan does with his entertainment. The first thing is he wants to make God look so fluffy and weak that you would never expect to experience what the Bible teaches us it is like when God appears to his mighty leaders for a mighty purpose and he unveils himself and it's terrifying to us. He wants you to think God's not like that. The second thing he will do is he really wants you to believe that if you do feel terror, it is always him. This is a big trick and it's very subtle. So what happens is if you enjoy Satan's entertainment, for example, a horror movie, and you feel the terror in your spirit because you see some demonic presence on the screen, he wants you to associate that terror with God when the time comes when he knows God needs to speak to you. This is very important to understand because this is a huge stumbling block to God's people. We are inundated with false doctrines about our God and about the spiritual realm through Satan's entertainment. So what we have to do to battle this is we have to trust God at all times. We have to move with God and trust him and know if he's not answering our prayers how we want them answered, there's a reason for it, and we will be so thankful that we moved forward with God and didn't give up. We cannot give up during this season. We cannot fall on the ground and quit because God always has a good purpose for bringing you through really hard things. Now we must ask, what is God's true purpose for this season? Why is he so serious about this time in your life where you are feeling horrified because you're experiencing his presence in a way that people do not talk about, and very rarely do we see it on the earth? The reason is because God has serious blueprints to prepare with you. He has very special plans that he needs you to prepare with him for the upcoming season that need your attention because they're a part of your purpose. He has assigned you to certain things, and when the time comes, he knows that you need to prepare them at all costs. Even if you have to be afraid while you do it, you will prepare these things for God. And what God does is he uses the enemy's attacks and doesn't necessarily hold them back from you because the enemy's attempt at deception invigorates you to fight. And when you fight, you need to go to God and say, God, what do I do in this situation? And what God says is you need to prepare my blueprints. This is what he's going to tell you. And through the process of preparing the blueprints with him, he starts revealing different levels of himself to you. He reveals what you're supposed to fulfill in him. He also reveals the level of consecration that you need to make sure you're clear on in order to not disqualify yourself from working with God. Now, there is one very special reward that God gives from enduring and persevering and conquering through this process with him and trusting him that he's going to take care of you. This reward is that you are immune to the upcoming judgment that he is going to give on the corporate scene and on the corporate international level. The reason is because he gives you a taste of what his judgment feels like. So when the time comes when it's live and you need to do his purpose while people are getting judged and while the world is going through so much horror that he has ordered, you will not be fazed. You will be able to operate in your purpose exactly how he's taught you, and you will not be worried about you being destroyed, anything that you're working on not working. You will trust and know that the God who brought you through this season will keep you in this phase too. He will protect you, and he will make sure that you complete his purpose because he's already shown you every single thing that he's going to do and how it feels. So you are completely immune. Another bonus reward that you get is you get cleaned up spiritually. You start realizing that you cannot accomplish even God's preparations without cleaning up your life. He will demand that you prepare, but he will not let you prepare properly if you don't clean up what he tells you to on the other side. This protects you in this coming era and for the rest of your life because he will show you the level of cleanliness your spirit and you need to have in order to work with him properly. And he teaches you that the level of cleanliness you have in your spirit is the level of power he will operate through you in your life. So really what this means is when God appears to you as one of his powerful leaders and you have tried to pray everything away, you thought it was the enemy, you rebuked everything and it stayed there, that horrible, terrifying situation, and you see that God is blessing you through this situation, really what God's trying to show you is you do not need to be terrified of him. You need to have a healthy fear of the Lord, but you really shouldn't be terrified of him. Because people who are terrified of his presence, it means that they are not in the right place with him and they are not aligned. This is what God will teach you. And at the end of this process, you will learn to trust him with all of your heart, and you will see that the most terrifying situation you've ever been in that he ordered is the most powerful and wonderful thing that ever happened to you. You will thank him for it, and hopefully you will thank him sooner than I did. Because years ago, I found myself in a situation where God met me, and I really didn't understand that it was him ordering it. And I went through the process thinking that everything was so awful, and I couldn't understand why God allowed it. But now I thank God that I went through it because it's the one thing that saved my life, my physical life, and it saved my spirit from complete destruction. And this is why he's so awesome. His love is so immense and so beautiful that he would allow us to get a taste of this side of his character in order to get us in line, because he knows what we would want more than anything is to work with him and be on the right side with him. We would not want to miss what he has for us in our lives. This is what he knows. So we must trust him. The final reward that God will give if you endure this terrifying encounter with him and you do not give up and keep him number one and trust him with all of your heart is he will make you an unshakable tool in the coming era where he's going to use you for his purpose. He will make you the answer to what people are looking for. The answer will be him, and he will use you to give this answer throughout the entire world. He wants to forge you into a mighty, powerful leader for Jesus Christ, and God will use you to touch the world and comfort people and lead people to him when he is bringing judgment on the earth and cleaning house. He is determined to establish your authority through Jesus Christ. Hail Jehovah.